Hi guys, this is basically part 2 of my Amazon Elemental Bow build, but this time it's going to be with full Mavina set. The build got a couple buffs in a row and patches in a row. This one got 1 all skill on the bow, and the armor got 40% freezing arrow radius. So the idea of the build is you use freezing arrow as your main attack and immolation as your secondary, even though immolation deals a ton of damage. If we look at here, average fire damage, which is the fire on the ground. It lasts for 4 seconds and it deals 6,000 damage per second. So you can actually stack the ground fire, so it's pretty insane. And the freezing arrow does freeze the target for 2 seconds, so it's also very good. So for the items, I want a Mavina bow with sockets ideally, with shells for more attack speed, because basically all you want is plus skills and attack speed with this build. Pierce is also good, magic fine, res obviously, but the main two things are plus skills and attack speed. Since I don't want to invest with this bow with facets, it's much better to just use magic fine in your helmet and armor. Unless you're struggling with resistances, then I would put runes or jewels with res, but I'm using double topazes. Gloves, you would want attack speed corruption or resistances. These are corrupted, no changes. For boots, I'm using these for pierce. Res would be best as a corruption. You can use Wartrav, Silkweave for more sustain, or others for life and res. Belt, I have Mavina belt obviously. With attack rating corruption, the best corruption would be pierce. Ravenfrost, this is the one item I would always buy with this build. It's mandatory, it doesn't have any corruption, but running speed, faster run walk would be best, or physical resistances if you want more defensive. Dwarf Star, just a defensive option. I have faster run walk corruption. It's very good ring overall, or you could use res ring, magic fine. This slot is open for whatever. And for amulet, I'm using Mara's. Previously I was using Vidala for the pierce, and if you use Vidala amulet in the boots, you get 8 all res and you get 50 MF, so it's really good for leveling or just for budget. It's really good, but Mara's would be the best in slot with +1 all skill. Mine is just CNC. And for arrows, you want as much plus skills as you can, attack speed, mana and life after each kill, which is what I have. I had better arrows, but I corrupted them and bricked them, unfortunately. So you would want 3 bow and crossbow, or like I have here, elemental. You can also roll all skill. These I have attack speed, and deadly strike doesn't matter for elemental, so you can ignore that. So again, you want plus skill, attack speed, pierce. That's basically what you want. For charms, I'm using bow skillers. These all cost me 1 orb of corruption. Everything Mavila said is cost 1 orb of corruption, same for the skillers, so it's very cheap to make. Obviously, Annie and Torch that I found myself, and life, charms. I have 1 hit recovery charm, so I can hit the next breakpoint, which is, I think it's 33. The next hit point, I'll put it on the screen, but I'm pretty sure it's 33. So with this build, I have 268 magic fire. It's really good. You can farm pretty much any zone you want, and maps obviously, but you're gonna want to have a bit more levels and have more skillers, like full skillers basically, to do maps, because the sustain is really difficult. So for the skill, you want to max Immolation Arrow, Freezing Arrow, and 1 synergy each. So for Freezing Arrow, you want to max Cold Arrow, because as you can see here, Cold Arrow gives 21 damage per level, and Ice Arrow gives only 4% damage and 4 freeze length. The freeze length doesn't matter, the base freeze is 2 seconds, which is more than enough, and only 4% cold damage is not a lot of damage. And for Immolation Arrow, the only synergy you want to max is Fire Arrow, which is the first one here, for the ground damage. The majority of the damage that comes from Immolation Arrow is the ground damage, not the impact damage, that is the 2200 damage that it says here on the tooltip. So you can ignore Exploding Arrow for sure. In Javelin, I don't put anything. I put 1 point in Pierce, 1 point in Evade, 1 point in Avoid, and Dodge. And my remaining point, I put at Valkyrie personally, because I want my Valkyrie to be more tanky. What you could do instead is put point an exploding arrow for more impact damage on Immolation Arrow. I just don't find putting points in Ice Arrow worth it at all. So you have two choices, either maxing Valkyrie or maxing Exploding Arrow for more damage. For stats, I just put enough strength and dex to wear the bow and the armor, the rest all in vitality. For Merc, I'm using Act 5 with Plague for the low resist and Cleansing. Cleansing remove poison and curses in maps, it's really useful. But I would not really recommend using this if you're not gonna upgrade your Zon to something better later on with Ice Rune Word and all that. I'm using Act 5 instead of Act 3 because later on I want to upgrade to a Storm Shield Act 3 Merc, but I don't have a Storm Shield right now. Treachery for the Fate proc is just really strong, makes your Merc really tanky. And Undial Visage for attack speed, life leech, and I have a melee splash jewel in the helmet. But what I would recommend if you don't want to invest is just a Act 2 Inside Merc with Treachery. I have a non-eth base, but you want to use a ethereal elite base, except Colossus, because that's the worst base in the game. It's really bad. So Thresher and any of the elites except Colossus, obviously. Shaft Top is another option for Merc Armor for more damage reduction. You have to upgrade it before corrupting it if you want 4 socket, because in this state, when you find it, it's just gonna upgrade to 3 socket if you corrupt it. And for a helmet, another choice would be Tal Rasha helmet or Steel Shade for more flat lifesteal. One of the upside of the build is that it's really cheap to make. You can farm pretty much all the zones because it's of the hybrid damage that you have on cold and fire skills. And the DPS is quite high also. One of the downside, however, is that the mana cost is really high on Immolation. On Freezing Arrow, it's not too bad. And that's why I'm using mana and life after each kill on my arrows. And I would recommend using Silkweave if they were not so expensive right now. I would buy them, but I don't have a lot of runes, so that's why I'm not using them right now. But Silkweave would help you a lot in maps especially. And they're quite good for later on the upgraded version of the build also. And another downside would be that the build doesn't have that much AoE compared to like multi-shot or like Lightning Fury, so people might not enjoy to play this build as much in maps, but personally I really like the playstyle and it's quite unique. So I really like this. So the best area to farm would be Chaos Sanctuary, the Pit in Act 1, and the Ancient Tunnel in Act 2. And when you can get into maps, I would do Icy Cavern because it has small corridors, there's no cold immune, and only one fire immune, which is the little imps that are quite weak, who just one shot easily by you or your Merc with cold arrows. The other map that I like is the Musty Crypt. Even though it says 3 fire and 3 cold immunes, you have to do more skill switching and whatnot, but I really like the layout and it's really good for the build because it's small corridors again, like I said. This Desecrated Temple is not bad if you have Cleansing Aura on your Merc, because the Oblivion Knight they cast Decrepify on you, which slows your attack speed. But I'm using Cleansing, so it's not that bad. If you don't have it, it's not gonna be, you're not gonna have a fun time. If not, Rune Citadel is not that bad, but it's quite deadly map. The monsters are quite fast, like the Flesh Lancers, they attack really quickly, so if you don't kill them before they reach you, you're just gonna die. And there's quite a bit of range minions there. The Slinger, they shoot spears. Hierophant, they do cold damage and lightning damage. But overall, the layout, even though it's like semi-open, it's quite good for the build. So those would be the 3 maps that I would recommend. And obviously, the Pleasant Pasture, which is the cow map. There's no immunes, but they're all kind of tanky to every types of damage. But if you have the Conviction Aura, or like me using a Plague or something, you're gonna reduce their resist by quite a bit. So I'll end the video with clips from maps and chaos and all that. Later on, when I upgrade my Zon, I'll actually post another guide with the like fully upgraded version of the Ice Ball Zon with the Ice Rune Word, Chain of Honor, all that stuff. So I'll keep you guys posted once I have the currency to buy everything. I'm not big into trading, so hopefully I find good stuff. And I'll see you next time. Alright, goodbye.
Not even death can save you from me.